I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, October 7th. The big news in Arkansas today is a still ongoing legislative hearing about a $1 million consultant's report to the legislature and the governor on what the state should do about continuing the private option Medicaid expansion that was financed by Obamacare. The bottom line recommendation is that, of course, the state should continue the private option. Otherwise, it'll face a $500 million or more in cost, and the rising cost of a traditional Medicaid program. It will lose untold millions more that it's been used to operate government with. What does the consultant offer as a way to make this more palatable to people that don't like the private option? A number of things. There's a strong recommendation for managed care, that is, probably a private insurance company that would do something to place cost controls on those people covered in the program. There's a strong emphasis on ways to save money on treating people who are aged in nursing homes, for example, the developmentally disabled, people with behavioral problems, sometimes now taken care of in very expensive institutional settings. I think we're going to see a whole lot more about recommendations to move these people into less expensive and sometimes more desired community settings. There's talk about work requirements, if not work, at least attempts to get work. There's talk about people who receive Medicaid, if they don't meet health goals and better health and living conditions, that might also cost them their Medicaid coverage. Co-pays, perhaps, for people. There's been a great deal of talk about fraud. They've thrown out a lot of figures that sound really a lot worse than they are. I think our error rate on Medicaid is not far different from the national average, but there is fraud that occurs. There can be better systems to make sure that people don't get Medicaid who are not entitled to get it. This is all part of a giant package of things that's going to take a lot of time to digest. It's a little early yet to say how the legislature is reacting to it. I think it's safe to say that the same people who didn't like Obamacare because it meant more government spending are still in that category, but there are an awful lot of realists who call themselves conservatives who feel this same way, who also see the very real benefits. 250,000 more people are on health care. Hospitals no longer have huge uncompensated costs. I think there's even some sign that some cost control efforts are working, and that, yes, maybe even people are getting a little bit healthier as a result. Those are good things. Elsewhere, there was a hearing this morning in Circuit Judge Wendell Griffin's court, a lawsuit by death row inmates asking for a delay in execution at least until the state provides information about where it's getting drugs and what type of drugs it's obtained to carry out lethal injections under the death penalty laws. The state passed a law in 2015 to make all this information secret. That seems to directly break with a contract they'd entered with in an earlier lawsuit that guaranteed that this information would be provided. The judge says he'll issue a ruling next week. He did show some unhappiness during the hearing with efforts the state legislature has made to limit judges' decisions on what kind of evidence can be brought into their cases before trial. So we've kind of got a constitutional fight perhaps underway. Interesting story in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette this morning picked up on something that I've written about before. A member of the Little Rock Technology Authority board wants to know why a credit union was forced to drop out of a group of lenders who are going to make money off loaning money to the deck park for its early construction project. A banker lobbyist brought this about because they don't like credit unions. The member of the board has written a letter to others asking whether this is fair or not. Of course, it's not fair. It was a political decision. I've written at some length about how a clubbish attitude prevails in a lot of city government. It's one thing when it's in private business, but I don't think a publicly operated agency that's wholly funded by taxpayer money should let political considerations decide who gets business and who does not. It ought to be fairly open to all on the same basis. Also, late yesterday after we taped, we learned the outcome of the police brutality suit brought by a Dover family against a city marshal and deputy sheriff for their handling, and they were found guilty of no wrongdoing ultimately in an encounter on the streets of Dover 4 years ago. A jury came in with a verdict in favor of all the defendants, but 30 minutes too late for the county of Polk County, who had employed the deputy sheriff who used a taser on a 16-year-old boy multiple times and left him with injuries. They settled their part of the case for $225,000. So the ACLU backed lawsuit did produce some return from the family. The ACLU, of course, is disappointed that the jury verdict went against them, but they said the case highlighted, and I think there's some truth to it, that there's a great lack of misunderstanding by police, that you can't rough people up because they won't give you your name, but that there always are problems for people out on the streets who run into police who want to exercise their power, and there's not much accountability and not much review process. There probably ought to be more. Benji Hardy wrote for us yesterday that East End, the successful charter school in Little Rock, is going to wants to build a new elementary school on the east end of Little Rock near the Clinton Library. It's part of its plan to grow to 5,000 students, to be one of the biggest school districts in the state. This has immense implications, of course, for the Little Rock School District. Speaking of which, I've written at some great length today on the Arkansas blog about State Representative John Walker and his plans to file a federal lawsuit, perhaps as soon as today, that says racial motives were at work in the decision by the State Board of Education to take over the Little Rock School District and fire the Little Rock School Board, which was majority black. It's an interesting story, if not legally, at least factually, about all the business forces that put together an orchestrated campaign to take over the school district, and they succeeded at it. And the amount of money spent by the Waltons to try and enforce their idea of what good education is on the city of Little Rock, a picture that did not include continuation of a conventional public school district. Finally, for lighter entertainment, I'd urge you to take a look at our blog again, or other sources have it as well, for video of Bill Clinton's appearance last night on Stephen Colbert's show. Colbert asked him to be the great explainer, as President Obama once said Bill Clinton is good at being, and it was about how to explain Bernie Sanders, how to explain Donald Trump, and did Bill Clinton really get Donald Trump in this presidential race or what? Clinton's answers are good, they're easy to understand, and reasonably persuasive, I suppose. Too bad he's not running again. I think he's probably better at explaining stuff than Hillary Clinton is. That's it for today. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.
You feel it in your heart, the spirit of Little Rock. We've had that spirit since 1927, helping build our city by producing decades of leaders in the heart of our state. We are the heart of business and innovation, the heart of politics and government, the heart of arts and culture, and in our city beats the heart of a Trojan. UALR, we are Little Rock's team and Little Rock's University.
Yeah, I used to be friends with Bill Clinton. Who cares?